European Union has a birthplace, then it is here, in this little cottage in a woodland west of Paris. If the EU has a founding father, then it is this man, Jean Monnet. In the broken remains of post-war Europe, together with a trusted circle of advisors, over coffee and cognac and fireside chats, they dreamed of a continent prosperous and at peace. Jean Monnet had a vision in this house, and from here he set the whole European project in motion. But what's become of that original vision? Over the next 3 nights, we're going to be asking, what state of health is the European dream in today? Jean Monnet had an idea: to bind the economies of Europe so tightly that war would become impossible. He took his plan to the French foreign minister. Together, they formulated the Schuman Declaration.
L'Europe ne se fera pas d'un coup, ni dans une construction d'ensemble. Elle se fera par des réalisations concrètes, créant d'abord une solidarité de fait.
Those early Europe builders began by pooling production of coal and steel. It was the first step towards that de facto solidarity. It would lead, they hoped, to a federation of Europe. Hello, sir. I'm Gabriel Gatehouse from Newsnight. There aren't many of that generation left today, but in an apartment in the 17th arrondissement of Paris, we found one. Georges Berthoin is the last surviving member of Jean Monnet's original cabinet at the European Coal and Steel Community. It was the first institution out of which would grow the European Union.
The dream was to make peace among European countries stable and credible. Then there was another element. The element was prosperity. So the problem was not only to rebuild Europe, but to modernize Europe. And in this respect, we were looking at the example of the United States of America, and especially the size of the market.
Yes, so this is you.
Yes.
And this is Jean Monnet with his peace and prosperity. That was the goal. 5 years later, 6 countries would sign the Treaty of Rome, establishing a European economic community.
I love that. It's brilliant.
But the ambition was for a much closer union.
The Schuman Declaration, it said the first step toward European federation. And when we started, we thought we were going to start something, and we thought at the time that we were going to achieve the whole thing, including the political development, within 10 years.
And so it happened that France and Germany formed the central axis of a European Union. And they enjoyed decades of peace and prosperity, a de facto solidarity among member nations. This is Breisach on the Rhine in Germany. Across the river, Neuf-Brisach in France. The French built these fortifications to guard against attacks from the German side. These 2 towns that saw 3 wars in 70 years are now the heartland of the European Union. Here then are 2 towns on opposite banks of the Rhine. They're living together in peace. Their citizens can travel freely, backwards and forwards, across this bridge. And whatever side they happen to find themselves on, they can pay for stuff in a common currency. In so many ways, this is exactly what the European project has always hoped to achieve. Over the decades, Europe brought with it all sorts of benefits. Jobs, common rights and protections for workers. But you don't have to dig very deep here to discover that the river still divides. On the French side, around Neuf-Brisach, There were once many factories. This one used to produce pistons for the European car industry. But in 2013, high labour costs forced it to close.
Je pense qu'en France, on paye trop d'impôts. Les taxes professionnelles, les impôts pour les salariés payent trop cher. Et je pense que c'est pour ça que beaucoup d'entreprises en France, ils délocalisent vers les pays de l'Est.
Unemployment in this part of France is around 10% and rising. GDP is well below the European average. For these French workers, overseeing the demolition of their own factory, the EU today means seeing their jobs move to new member states in Eastern Europe. There was a dream, a European dream in the 50s, in the 60s, about peace and prosperity. Do you think that dream is still alive?
I think no, this peace is here in Europe, but prosperity, I think no. In Germany, I think a little prosperity, here in France, no.
Indeed. Back across the river in German Breisach, they have full employment. The citizens of this region, Baden-Württemberg, are among the richest in the EU. Just up the road from Breisach, we stumble across what appears to be the most pro-European place on the continent. Is this the stuff that dreams are made of? Welcome to Europapark. Meet Euro Mouse, the mascot of this Europe in microcosm. Nestled among the roller coasters are many of the member states. Scandinavia, Portugal, Greece, which includes Pegasus, Cassandra's Curse, and the Flight of Icarus. There's even a British section. Black cabs, fast food and Shakespeare. Who knew the EU could be such family fun? Which is your favourite bit of the park?
Our favourite bit is Scandinavia, I think it is.
Scandinavian bit, right?
The
okay.
wooden roller coaster is brilliant.
Is it?
Yeah. I like England, but the thing is you haven't got a lot of rides here.
The history of Europapark reads like a sort of German industrial fairy tale. It was founded by the Mack family, stalwarts of German manufacturing since the late 18th century. The park opened its doors in 1975, inspired by the vision of a united Europe.
We choose Europe and we think it was the best way to go. Even nobody believed at that time that Europe would be as big as it is today.
As much of Europe struggles with an economic crisis, in Germany the dream of prosperity still burns bright. Today, nearly half the park's workers are from other EU nations.
We are growing really fast. We're about to open a water park in 2018 where we need another 700 employees. So it's quite difficult because the unemployment rate is so low in this area.
You just can't find the workers.
You can't find the workers.
Despite Europe's economies pulling in different directions, its nations are today united in peace. Back on the road, we drive through Verdun. Verdun is to the French what the Somme is to the British. 100 years ago, hundreds of thousands of young men lost their lives in these fields. Along the roads that wind through Europe's heartland, history lurks around every bend. Strasbourg. This city was once fought over. It's now at the heart of the European project, the home of the European Parliament. Throughout the EU's development, from its beginnings in coal and steel, through the Treaty of Rome, the Single European Act, the Maastricht Treaty, the direction of travel has been one way, towards ever closer union.
Maybe that was a bit naive, but we thought we were positioned to change European history. It sounds a bit stupid, but we believed in that. You know, at that time, we had the backing of public opinion on the continent because the experience and the tragedy of the war was in everybody's personal history. I use the expression, but it was not the one we used at that time. It would be a kind of United States of Europe.
Je vous laisse juste un petit tract.
D'accord, merci.
Voilà. Bonne journée.
These days, if you say you support a United States of Europe, you might as well commit political suicide, even here in Strasbourg.
Bonne journée.
These young activists are handing out leaflets for a by-election later this month. Last time round, they took a third of the votes. This time, they're hoping to win. They are the Front National.
You know, I was born in 1992.
You were born in 1992.
And it was the year of the Treaty of Maastricht.
Yeah.
And so we haven't known this European dream. All we have known it's only unemployment, the taxes, and all the disadvantages of this European Union. We haven't known this European dream. For us, it has been a failure.
The Front National is booming. A year from now, its leader, Marine Le Pen, could become president of France. She's promised to follow Britain's lead and hold a referendum on EU membership.
It's a real problem because
Julia says she'll vote out.
we need to find back our borders, our sovereignty, our freedom, our national freedom, to make respect our own laws, which are not the same but in Germany or in Italy or in Spain.
Some people worry that a party like yours is leading Europe back towards nationalism, back towards the place where it was in the 1930s.
You're right, the European Union is leading us back. That's the problem. It's the European Union that creates unemployment and violence and a feeling of insecurity.
The original founders of the EU had a dream of creating peace and prosperity through an ever closer union of nation states based on common interests and common values. The thing about ever closer union is that it presupposes a corresponding weakening of individual national identity. Now, it may be that the founders of the European Union thought that by the time we got to the second decade of the 21st century, the nation state would be a concept that had had its day. Well, it looks like they were wrong. Across Europe, the politics of identity is on the rise. Tomorrow night we'll be looking at borders, how the fall of the Iron Curtain led to a Europe more united than ever, and how, a quarter of a century later, the continent is in crisis over one of the cornerstones of the European dream, freedom of movement.